More on the new plan. Let's bring in CBS News Chief White House Correspondent Major Garrett. Major, good to see you.
Good to see you. Good morning.
So, Major, during a meeting with lawmakers last month, as you know, the president asked the group to consider raising the age limit to purchase certain firearms. Let's just play a little bit of that for our audience.
Right.
It doesn't make sense that I have to wait till I'm 21 to get a handgun, but I can get this weapon at 18. I don't know. So I was just curious as to what you did in your bill.
We didn't address it, Mr. President. Look, I think
you know why? Because you're afraid of the NRA, right?
All right, so Major, what has changed? Yeah, that moment was, you know, if you're sitting on the other side of that, you know, it's a little bit of a zinger. So, if you're to me, so what has changed since that interaction between the president and lawmakers?
Well, two things. The intervention of the National Rifle Association, lunch here at the president. Two of the top executives from the NRA came here a couple of weekends ago, sat down with the president, had a lengthy discussion about what the NRA was prepared to do and what it was prepared to oppose. And then lots of conversations with Republican leaders in the House and the Senate. And the White House concluded two things. The NRA was going to oppose any of the things that the president kind of leaned into, never really fully endorsed, but just sort of talked about as something he might consider or he might want to push for. And that the White House also discovered the Republican leaders in Congress simply were not going to try to find the votes to back up the president on this. So the White House decided, without the NRA's support and with opposition from his own party on Capitol Hill, or if not outright opposition, no enthusiasm for new gun control measures of any kind, the White House sort of fell back to a predictable pattern on this issue, which is to not confront the National Rifle Association and not push the gun control conversation forward in exactly the way the president did in the immediate aftermath of the Parkland massacre. Remember, when he had the listening sessions here at the White House, he said there's been way too much talk on this issue. We need to act, and I'm going to act as president. Well, the actions he's taken now are to do a lot more talking and then to endorse only the most minor approaches to this issue that have some bipartisan support. You mentioned in the graphic before coming to me making the background check system more effective. Well, that's the existing background check system. It would not expand background checks to the two areas where gun control advocates believe they should be expanded to, which is sales on weekend gun shows and over the internet. The background check system now is only applicable to federally registered firearms dealers. But lots of firearms are sold in this country through the internet and at weekend gun shows. Those are not covered by the background check system at all. And the White House wouldn't even endorse a measure to expand background checks to those very large places in which firearms are purchased. So it is a retrenchment for sure, based on pressure from the NRA and resistance from the Republican-led Congress.
So then can we presume that this will certainly not satisfy those gun control advocates? I mean, it does address some of the issues that the students from Stoneman Douglas High School raised in the wake of that shooting. It addresses the need for more support for the mentally ill. It addresses the need for more security at schools. I mean, that's some of what they were talking about. It is some of what they were talking about. And in that sense, this is responsive to not just the students, but the general sense of our schools a soft target, as the president described them. Can they be hardened? Can they be made safer places and safer spaces? And this White House also is basically deferring to states and local communities, as it knew it had to, on this whole topic of whether or not you arm certain trained school personnel. That's going to be a school district decision made in some coordination with the state government, but it's not a federal matter at all, unless the federal government wants to put some money behind it, but that would only be after the decision has been made to train those school personnel. And also on this entire question of, do you have specialized court orders to seize firearms, ammunition from those people viewed to be potentially threatening because of an underlying mental illness? That's also going to be something carried out at the state level. So this White House is deferring much of these conversations and much of the underlying politics to state and local governments and taking a hands-off approach. So even when it endorses ideas that some in the school safety or gun control community are generally receptive to,
they're not really going to make themselves, meaning the White House or congressional Republicans, the advocates for that. All those decisions and the hardcore politics are going to have to be fought out at the state and local level.
All right, Major, let's move on to Betsy DeVos, the Education Secretary. On 60 Minutes last night, she spoke with Leslie Stahl, and she talked about arming teachers. So let me play a little bit of that, and let's talk about it.
That should be an option for states and communities to consider. For those who are capable, this is one solution that can and should be considered. But no one size fits all. Every state and every community is going to address this issue in a different way.
So, Major, she also said she'd be heading up a new task force to look at what states are doing to combat gun violence. What more can you tell us about her role in the Trump administration, specifically as it regards to this? Because she's got a pretty big job handling our nation's schools, and we'll talk about that too, but she's also got this on her plate now.
Well, and there's a long-standing tradition in Washington. If you have a tough political issue and you want to sound as if you're doing something, but you don't want to do anything immediately, the thing you do is you create a commission.
Blue ribbon panel.
Some blue ribbon panel, some mechanism to study it, to bring in the experts and sort of take it out of the immediate political firestorms that surrounds it and cool everything off and hope people forget about it. I mean, that is a long-standing Washington tradition and bipartisan, by all means. Let me emphasize that. So it's not really clear how much of a priority is going to be placed on this commission or this group to study school safety, but what it does do is it takes this issue out of the hands of Congress, which is exactly what Republican leaders told the president they wanted. Get this off our backs. We're under too much pressure. We don't want to take any gun control votes now and alienate our base. We have enough concerns in the midterm elections worrying about voter enthusiasm on the Republican side. We don't need an irritating factor like a gun control vote or any kind of gun control votes to further dampen already worrisome trends of low enthusiasm among Republican voters. So this takes the issue off that front burner for a period of time. And that's exactly what the White House has decided to do in concert with Republicans in Congress, who essentially wanted to punt on this issue as rapidly as possible.
Yeah, never mind that these sort of panels are exactly what the president railed against during his campaign and actually
and
just
as recently
on the
as Saturday.
Yes,
as recently as Saturday
too.
in Western Pennsylvania. Yeah. Yes, talking about blue ribbon committees are all about talk and they don't do anything.
Yeah.
Well,
so let's do
that's
one.
Exactly this. That's exactly the solution he's come up with. More talk.